What's going on, everybody? We are officially... Ooh! That's not the right text document. Why is it reading the wrong text document? What up, Snarf? We aren't reading that right now. What's up, Cosmic? I don't know why I had the old one showing. How are you all doing today? That's the right one. We got a new setup and everything. Hey, now that you're back at home, hey, there you go. Being at home is the best, isn't it? Home's where you got your kitty. Doing great. Got your schoolwork done for the year. Yesterday? Nice. Getting your homework done is always a good thing. Always a good thing. I don't think I've ever heard a person go, man, I just got all my homework done and I just don't have anything to do. I don't have homework anymore, but I actually worked from home today. As what I do with most Fridays, actually. I kept it simple. Down below, you'll see. At the, why do you still say I'm playing Division 2? I'm not. Yes, Cat. Can I help you with something? I did have something to do. Turn my Wii U into an emulation device. Damn. That should be fun. So what kind of games are you going to be emulating on it? Because I am something of an emulation fan. If you say Super Ness, then yes. I am a Super Ness fan. Although my only issue is then you have to have, unless you can emulate like GameCube. Now play NES, SNES, Genesis, Game Boy, N64, and even GameCube games. Yeah, I guess the Wii U would have been strong enough for GameCube games. I need to look into this. The only issue is that I wish that I could take the tablet away from the base. Because, you know, that would be awesome. But that's actually really dope. Your hair nice, looks too nice. Thanks! You're using software called Nintendo. Ooh. Well, thank you for that, Snarf. I got my hair cut a couple weeks ago. I just decided to comb it today. As I'm teasing the kitty. So today we've got a good lineup of things we're going to be reading today. We got Not Anymore Chapter 7 by you, Snarf. Time Heals Chapter 3 by Thegirlnamedhawk. We won't be here today, but we'll watch it tomorrow. Galactic Threat, Predator and Prey, Chapter 6 by Cosmic Sword. And then we got Star Wars Episode 1, The Malevolent Darkness by the Aspiring Actor. And Darkest Dungeon, Blazing Bright by John Joestar 17. Is that a JoJo reference? I think it is. I know it is, actually. Cat, are you gonna be a jerk today? Is that what we're gonna do? You're just jealous that I'm hanging out here, Kuro. Anyway. What is with you, Cat? What is with the love in you looking for? Cat looks like she's gonna attack something. Cat looks like she's gonna attack me if I don't pay attention to her. She's like, look, I know you're busy. However, I need pets. Let's see if I can find the right thing. I have something for this. Don't we all need pets? I know, yes. Yes, I do. Let's see if they have this. They don't have it readily available. Oh well. I think we all do need pets. Go give your loved ones a pat on the head and go, hey, appreciate you. Sometimes miss having a cat. Really? You're like, cat? Just knock all that shit off my desk? Love you. Wish I wasn't allergic to cats. Oh, your husband's allergies. Do not miss having a cat. Fair enough. Sometimes you gotta go for it with the allergies. I am thankfully not allergic to cats, but I am, however, allergic to grass. Talk about a nightmare. That is not pleasant. It's like, oh, cool. Anytime that someone's mowing the lawn, guess who's gonna die? Hence sneezing attack you mentioned on Discord. Yeah, pretty much when anybody mows the lawn. Yeah. I mean, I've mowed the lawn before, and like for the next 3 hours, I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. But it works out. It works out completely. But, you know, sometimes you just gotta mow the lawn. Sometimes you just gotta do it. You know? It's like, the yard's looking a little rough. You gotta do it. Okay. But, what else has been going on? I ended up getting myself a drawing pad. I feel like it's been a long time since I've actually chatted with you, but for you, Snarf, it was Monday, and Cosmic, it might have been a little bit. But I got myself a drawing pad, and I've been drawing a lot more. Been learning to draw, I should say. The last couple days, I've been drawing some stuff. Like a Wacom tablet, it is. Hey, ignore Bottissimo. I literally, do you want to know why I got a bot for this channel? So I could filter out spoilers. I kid you not. I was like, you know what? I want to, for spoilers for Endgame. I have this dreaded fear that somebody will try to come in and basically try to spoil it. I haven't seen it either. I have not seen it either. Hang on, I want to check something. If you'll participate here, if either one of you will just use the word Thanos, Thanos, I want to see what the bot will be doing. Boom. Timed out. Boom, there you go. Alright, there you go. I'm like, nope, get rid of it. Times you out for a couple seconds, deletes the message. What up, Doug? How are you? Deletes the message, just goes, cuts, and boom. So I don't know if you all could see. I don't know if you could see. So when Schnarf posted it, if Cosmic could see it, and when Cosmic posted, if Schnarf could see it, if it immediately goes, nope, we're done here. No pun intended with snap. I was just saying, Doug, that I actually have, I literally got a bot for the sole purpose of filtering out Avengers spoilers. Yes, that's the thing I did. I was like, I don't want... yeah, you'd have to be really dedicated. Ant-Man... I'm sorry, A-N-T-M-A-N... No, I'm pass. It's just not a super fun thing to do. Although it looks super vaporwave now. But no, you were asking about my tablet. It is, unplug it. It is just a nice little Wacom tablet. Boom. It's nice. I like it. It's super simple to use. Just plug and play. It's super receptive. I've not really been a drawer before because I don't like the way paper feels. It feels, to me, paper feels more permanent. Because once you make a line, you've got to erase it, and you've only really got so much room for erasing. Whereas with a Wacom, it's like, or any tablet you're doing digital drawing with, it's like, don't like it, Control Z, Control Z, and I've got a button specifically for that. Like, don't like that line? Hit a button. It undoes it. super simple. Feels like I can go over the same lines like 7-8 times before I get the one that I really, really like. And I hate drawing with a mouse because I have terrible coordination with the mouse on occasion. If you've ever seen me play a PC game, you all know that. Writing stories has been a stronger point for you. There you go. Gotta go with what you gotta go. I like the Control-Z is very bad for my loud inner perfectionist. I know that feeling, but I'm like, okay, I know my lines aren't going to be perfect. I've literally drawn 3 things. A Bulbasaur, an Ivysaur, and a Pikachu. I'm like, I'm not going to curate and go, no, this isn't good. I'm going to go, that line looks good. We're going to move on. I'm not going to redo that line 7,000 times till it's perfect. It's not going to be. I've been drawing for 3 days. So I'm like, okay. And with Pokemon, because I was like, I'm going to draw something that I know. With Pokemon, there's over 800 challenges and designs. So it's very different, each one. So it gives me a lot of practice for color shading and things like that. Whenever I tell people I write fanfiction, the first question is most people ask, is there sex in your story? It's like telling people that you live stream on the internet. They're like, oh, you do porn, or you make videos. Oh, you do porn. It's like, no, just because I'm not PewDiePie or Ninja does not mean that I do porn. It's like, it's like, I feel flattered that you have looked at me and thought you could do porn. It's like assuming you're Satanist, you're satanic just because you listen to heavy metal, right? You know what? I hate 50 Shades of Grey because it has ruined a lot of things. Fan fiction, and if you look into it, it has absolutely just decimated the sex culture that book promotes, because it's very damaging. It's a very damaging relationship, and it's not an active representation of the way things are. It's like it sucks. It's like one of those, cool, thanks for ruining it for everybody, because, you know, and that is to say that there's nothing wrong with whoever wrote it. I don't even know off the top of my head having wrote it, because almost anything's a better story than 50 Shades of Grey. There's nothing wrong with the person having wrote it, because fan fiction is a very subjective thing. When I think it was E.L. James originally wrote the Twilight fan fiction, or she might not have even originally wrote it, but when they wrote it, it means that was something that meant something to them, and then someone came by and had to write or made money off of it. Haven't seen or read it. Bloodiverse is pretty much 100% abusive, and 50 Shades of Grey very much not in real life. Not that I would know. Not that I would know either, but that's what I've heard as well. I've actually not seen or read it either. I thought about doing that as a particular funny April Fool's joke. Just reading passage after passage of 50 Shades of Grey. But I was like, pass. I'd like to keep my channel. If I want to nuke my channel, that's what we do. But actually, in a weird way, speaking on not wanting to associate with different fragments of things, that's actually why I actively don't tell people I am a streamer. Is because people have a negative connotation of streamer. The Try Guys read fan fictions about themselves. It was hilarious. Oof. I've seen Rooster Teeth read fan fictions of themselves. It's terrible. But I don't actively say, oh, I'm a streamer, because there are terrible examples of streamers who are narcissistic. Imagine if someone wrote fan fiction about me. I mean, why would you do it? How would I react? You know, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. I think it would be kind of funny. I would probably print it out and tell people I have a book written about me, and then hand it to them and run. I mean, 90% of it would probably be my obsession with the magicians, and now I'm gonna write a book about it. Might be weirded out, yet strangely flattered. It's like, check out this book. Hey, ooh, those are nice fireworks. I have it actually on both sides of my screen because I have 2 chat windows up. I would print it out and send it to people. But I was gonna say, I want to write a book, a legit book, about the emotional, psychological relationships in the magicians. How you have different aspects of healthy relationships, abusive relationships, friendships, love interests, all of this, basically growing up, mental illness, all this sort of thing, with one particular series. Because to me, I've got to give it a ton of thought. Anybody who knows me knows how obsessed I am with the show. But, you know, what are you going to do? It's like when people... actually, I have a really good book laying around here somewhere. Like The Psychology of Zelda. It's like, cool. There's a lot of psychological things in there. And it just takes a little effort to doing that. But, I say... still need to read that? Yes, you do. You do need to read that. It's a really good book. It's super good, super entertaining. It's not long, but it makes you read a couple chapters and go, you know what? I need to put this down and I need to think about this. You know, because it's easy. It's fun. You know? It's Zelda. Cat hair. I feel the same way when I read Frankenstein. I've never read Frankenstein. I've never read it. I've read Bram Stoker's Dracula. I like that narrative. I like that structure. I like that structure. The original book is actually quite thought-provoking. I mean, I know the idea of basically it's what is a man, but a miserable pile of secrets. But it's basically like humanism and who is the true monster. It's a lot like a lot of things, actually. And yes, I did quote Castlevania. Okay. I have been going on for too long. Let's get into some reading. Okay. We're gonna get ready to get started here. Up in here. Remember, I am interacting with chat while I'm reading, so if you got a statement or anything, go for it. And I'm loving the fact that we get to have almost near instantaneous communication. Feels good. Okay. Not anymore. Chapter 7 by Schnarf 9892. For the first several days, Pippet did little more than sleep. His body was healing, and it demanded that he rest. So rest he did. Not that he could have kept his eyes open anyway. The pull to sleep was too strong. Very quickly he learned that he couldn't lay flat until his ribs healed. The first time he tried, he couldn't even get up on his own. It was too painful. Sleeping in the lounge chairs was not a pleasant solution either, because he would invariably tip to the side and jolt awake, gasping and clutching his ribs like his hand was the only thing holding them together. After some trial and error, he settled on placing an upended kitchen chair at the head of his bed, with pillows padding the now diagonal back, so he could lay somewhat reclined. It was hardly perfect, but it was better than any alternative he had found. To say it was comfortable was a stretch, but at least made it easier to sleep. Sleep. After those first few days had passed, sleep became a twisted joke. A seductive siren call that he resisted until he physically couldn't. Every time he inevitably nodded off, he'd find himself in that pool of blackness, running from or fighting against some dark figure with a familiar voice he could never place. oil stalking over his chest, coating his back, surging up his nostrils, would twist him and crush him and break his bones until he was no longer himself. He would scream and thrash, plead and cry, beg for respite until he lurched awake with his heart thrashing, ribs throbbing, and air and lungs pleading for air. The horror shows plagued him to the point that he became afraid of falling asleep. He instead chose to hold vigil or keep busy with mindless tasks until morning came. Oh, how he wished he had something of purpose to do at night, something to keep the nightmares at bay. With his broken ribs and injured ankle, he couldn't very well cover his designated night patrols. Fledge was assigned to cover for him until his 6 weeks of mandatory recovery time had passed. But with such vivid visions assaulting him each night, he found himself limping along his old patrol routes anyway. At first, he used the crutch Khurana had lent him, but it made him sore, with a shoulder rest dug into his armpit. So rather than avoid the nightly walks, he instead wrapped the joint tightly before slipping it into his worn-out and now burnt boots. He might as well be useful and do something productive. His other alternatives never panned out well. As well-intentioned as Fledge was, he had not been prepared for the physical strain of taking on all of Pipit's shifts. Pipit had originally signed up for the majority of the night patrols, and poor Fledge wasn't used to going on such little sleep. On his new nightly strolls, Pipit often found the younger student nodding off at his station or leaning against a wall, fast asleep, ignoring the strange bloom of jealousy he felt as his peer blissfully slept the night away. Pipit never woke him. He didn't have the heart to. Thus, even though he was still technically on medical leave, he ended up filling most of his own shifts anyway. Khurana remained true to her word and changed his bandages twice daily, and supervised his chest exercises. If he wasn't outside her dorm by the designated times, she would invariably show up at his mother's house with a basket full of dressings and poultices. She would sit next to him on the bed and tend to the fragile, healing skin on his neck. More often than not, the new tissue came off with the bandages, so he learned to down a red potion at least 15 minutes before his treatments. He hated how jittery the concoctions made him feel, and though they helped him stay awake for a while, he crashed hard once they wore off. One time, Khurana had him do his awful breathing exercises in his house, but the ambient haze of dust attacked his lungs and made him cough so much that he had to stagger outside into cleaner air just to breathe. He was on his hands and knees by the time his chest stopped convulsing, and he could take desperate, ragged gasps. After that, he made sure he was never late for his treatments again. Classes resumed a day or two after he had returned with Link, and not a word was mentioned to the other students about why they had been canceled in the first place. Though he was exhausted and sore, Pipit showed up and paid attention the best he could, without fussing with the itchy scarf around his neck. Professor Owlin was uncharacteristically tired, sporting dark circles under his eyes, and stifling yawns he tried to hide. But he spoke and taught with all of his usual grace and wisdom. Only when the professor moved a certain way did the young knight catch a glimpse of the white bandages beneath the professor's own scarf, hiding the hand-shaped burn they shared. When Pipit went to check on Link later that evening, Owlin let him sit with his unconscious brother and watch his chest steadily rise and fall. They cleaned him up and tidied his hair, but Link looked so frail, his pale skin marred with burns, bruises and bandages. He had not yet woken, and they didn't know when, or if, he would. Is he going to be okay? Pippet had asked, hoping for an answer he knew he wouldn't receive. Owlin peered pensively down at Link as he slept. Softly, he replied, I hope so. The days dragged by in a washed-out blur. His mother worked, the teachers taught, his classmates studied, and Pippet grew restless waiting. He flirted with hobbies, hoping to keep his consciousness active and drown out the dark whispers in the back of his mind. But he couldn't do much in his physical state. He kept up in his classes, forcing himself to read 3 chapters ahead in each textbook. But that could only fill so much time. He tried novels, though he had to give those up once he realized they made him sleepy. Thus, the young knight passed many of the dark hours studying Loftwings from his father's old tomes, quizzing himself on information he already knew by heart. Slowly, and with a certain degree of despair, Pippet realized that everyone resumed their normal daily routines, and life went on around him. He tried to jump back into his previous roles, but interacting with his usual circle left him feeling distant, hollow, and strangely antsy. Most of what he once loved now felt inconsequential, like it had never mattered. He went through the motions nonetheless, plastering on a polite mask, engaging in mind-numbing conversations, and trying to ignore how the shadows in the corners made the hair on his neck stand on end. It was as if life as he knew it had left him straggling behind, clutching at a threadbare blanket of normalcy that unraveled the more he clung to it. As he continued on with night after night of fragmented sleep and haunting nightmares, he was left with nothing more than tangled remnant threads, taunting him with that normalcy he once took for granted. He hoped that if he just ignored it and powered through the onslaught, it would lessen and eventually dissolve entirely. He was wrong. One evening, long after the other students had retired to their rooms for the night, he found himself sitting in the academy dining hall, wringing his hands while Khurana prepared tea in the adjoining kitchen. She had asked him to join her, though she seemed hesitant and uncomfortable about the prospect. She kept meeting his gaze and abruptly looking away as she filled the teapot and stoked the fire. It was just the two of them. Any other day would have been a relaxing time, enjoying each other's company, but Khurana seemed afraid to speak. What was going on? Outside, a windstorm buffeted the academy walls. It picked up earlier that evening, and the beams creaked with each gust. The building's groaning had him oddly tense and uneasy, though he couldn't quite put his finger on why. Several minutes passed in relative silence before Khurana came to the table with 2 steaming cups of warm saffron tea. He quietly thanked her as she placed one of the saucers in front of him before sitting down on the other side of the table. Her petite hands curled around the mug's ceramic exterior, and she stared down into the amber liquid, deep in thought. After a moment, she said, I made your favorite. Pippet nodded and thanked her. He knew she preferred Hyrule herb tea. Honey? She offered, holding out the jar and spoon. No thanks, Pipit politely declined, favoring his straight. Not yet, though. It was much too hot. If he tried to drink it now, it would scald his mouth. He'd have to let it cool for a few minutes first. And so, they sat. Neither held the other's gaze for long before breaking eye contact. Khurana idly sipped, and Pipit chewed on the inside of his lip. It was odd how she was behaving. Khurana was usually a fireball of energy. Seeing her act so meekly made Pipit uncomfortable. Though it seemed she too was uncomfortable as she fiddled with the bracelet or traced her thumb over the creases in her palm. Pipit quickly grew tired of waiting. "What's on your mind?" he asked, intending to sound gentle, but his impatience leaked out in his tone. He furrowed his brow. Khurana opened her mouth, but then hesitated. She stirred her tea for a few seconds before stating, "You've been on edge lately." He furrowed his brow and took a steady breath in and out, assessing her claim. "I suppose so," he admitted reluctantly. He did not like where this conversation was going. "Do you know why?" "Probably. Yeah," he said, trying to end the conversation before it could truly begin. He met her gaze, and she waited, expecting him to continue. He sighed and shifted his focus to the wall, the table edge, the wood grain. He really did not feel like getting into it right then and there. Anything he could say would just sound like complaining anyway. Besides, it was his burden to bear, and he didn't want to put any more of his struggles on other people. Helia knew that between the ankle, his throat, and his ribs, he was burdening Khurana enough as it was. She was his girlfriend. He was supposed to support her and build her up, to empower her to do great things, not weigh her down with whatever it was he was dealing with. "Will you tell me about it?" And there it was. He ran his fingers through his hair, let out a nervous breath. He did not want to do this. Not here, not now, maybe never. But she just kept staring at him, watching, waiting. "What's going on, AJ lad?" We are in the middle of reading a chapter of Not Anymore from Schnarf about Skyward Sword. How are you doing today? Hey, thank you for the 150 sparks of the pizza. Could he even make her understand? Could she truly fathom the violence he had tasted, or the horrors he had witnessed? Wouldn't that just drag her down? Those memories were his to carry, not hers. It was better to let them die with him. Maybe he could give her something to get her off his back, without revealing everything his mind kept dwelling on. That could work. Would put her at ease without laying even more of his burdens on her, trying to gather his thoughts into something guarded and coherent. He stared down into the steam wafting up from his mug, watching the way it shifted as he breathed. He started licking his lips. "I feel, I don't know, stuck? Maybe?" That was not what he had planned on saying. "Stuck?" Khurana echoed, lacing her fingers around her mug once more. He instantly regretted ever opening his mouth. There was no way to back out of it now. Perhaps if he revealed a little bit, without going into detail, then maybe she would leave it be and he could go fill his, or rather, fledge his patrol. How so? She asked. He swallowed and wiped a hand down his face. Was the dining hall warmer than usual? Was she sweating because he was nervous? Oh, surely not. The fire had warmed the room too much. That was all. I don't know. I can't. He sighed in frustration and wet his lips. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. I'm just stuck here. Khurana gave a sympathetic smile. It's important that you rest, so that you can recover. Pivot gave a sarcastic huff and muttered under his breath, Right, sleep. Then he froze as Khurana made pointed eye contact. Oh, she heard that. Not good. You're not sleeping at night? She asked, worried. My ribs, he amended. Mouth suddenly dry. Was there a glass of water nearby? No water. Just tea, he realized, which was still approximately the temperature of lava. He needed to steer the conversation in a different direction. Chasing his gaze blindly along the grain of the table, he said, I just wish I could do something. I can't fly. I can't work. I can't help with field practice. He rested his elbow on the table and propped his forehead up on his palm. I can't do a damn thing to help Link. Pippet, Khurana comforted as she placed a hand on his. You've done plenty. You saved his life by going down there. That remains to be seen, he replied, perhaps more harshly than intended. Her thumb rubbed circles on his hand, but he barely felt them. His mouth twisted into a frown. Absently shaking his head, he murmured, I should have gone down there sooner. He was not expecting the sudden wave of guilt to squeeze his chest, and it surprised him with its hold. Don't beat yourself up over that, she replied, trying to soothe his worries. You did everything you could with the knowledge you had. No, I didn't, he said, as the regret squeezed tighter. He told me 3 days. I waited 7. Anger began to stir in his belly. It mocked his prior inaction and current inability to take action. If I just left sooner, I could have prevented a lot of what he had to go through. I could have stopped it. He paused and tangled his fingers in his scalp. The anger was churning now, rising up from its depths in a destructive squall. Do you know what it's like to find a loved one in shackles? Have you felt the paralyzing fear as you held him in your arms, praying to all the goddesses that they would have the strength to draw another breath? Have you watched helplessly as some unholy power took control of your best friend and used him to almost kill you? Not once, but twice? Khurana blinked in surprise, caught off guard by the new information. Her brow lifted in sympathy, but with his guilt spewing, cutting insults at him, her pity just felt hollow and undeserved. He leaned in and said in a low voice, Now imagine knowing you could have prevented it all. Khurana's breath hitched, and she brought a hand to her breast. Her nose crinkled in disgust at himself, and he tore his gaze away. The quiet left him antsy and brooding. Her questions were forcing him to realize things he had been avoiding. things that hurt, things that he didn't know what to do with, things he hated. He hated how the shame he had managed to keep at bay now gnawed away at him, fresh and sharp and raw. He hated how vivid, shockingly violent images of surface monsters, dark figures, and even his own brother flashed before his eyes every time he closed them. He hated the dull ache of his ankle, the stinging pain on his neck, and the sharp stab in his side that he felt with every step, every turn, and every breath. Each one a constant reminder of his mistakes, his inadequacies, his failures. His teeth clenched. He hated that even though he was not Link's aggressor, Pippet still felt like it was all somehow his fault. He hated that he was completely useless right now, forced to sit back and twiddle his thumbs while he waited and waited and waited. He hated that the whole ordeal kept running through his mind in a fragmented loop, forcing him to relive his shortcomings on repeat. What's going on, Lee? How are you doing today? We are in the middle of Not Anymore, Chapter 7 by Schnarf9892, one of our very own viewers here. And it's about Skyward Sword, The Legend of Zelda. I don't know why I reworded it in that order, but, whatever. If he had actually gotten an actual sailcloth before he left instead of a flimsy bedsheet, he wouldn't be hobbling around on a bad ankle. If he had trained more, practiced harder, pushed himself farther, he would have been able to hold his own against the bokoblins. If he had stayed focused against the horde, he wouldn't have broken ribs. If he had held onto Link as they plummeted towards the cloud barrier, Red wouldn't have attacked his own Loftwing and stripped it from the sky. If he had warned the professor of the blinding power Link carried, he and Owlin wouldn't bear dark, blistered handprints upon their throats. He should have been more prepared. He should have done more. He should have done it all differently. He hated knowing everything he should have changed. He hated not being able to do a goddess damned thing about it. The hand in his hair curled into a fist, and he struck once against the table in helpless frustration. The impact clinked the mugs against their saucers and caused a cascade of ripples in his tea. Gazing intently into the disturbed wisps of steam, he shook his head again and repeated quietly, "I should have gone sooner." Khurana was silent. Shocked, perhaps. Pippet didn't care. Her hand cautiously found his once more and squeezed it gently, but she did not speak. What would I do for $1? I don't know. Not really worried about it. He had been trained not to think about anything that had happened on the surface. Now he could almost feel the volcanic heat at his back. For several moments they said nothing. The wind howled against the windows, and Pippet swore he heard the roar of battle and the swells. Goddesses above. He didn't mean to hit the table that hard. It was a lapse in control, and he needed to rein himself back in. But with his buried memories freshly unearthed, and in a chaotic flurry, control was a distant haze, an intangible ghost. He forced himself to unclench his fist, despite the clawing in his gut. A shaky sigh escaped his lips as he brought his fingers up to rub his dry, weary eyes. Maybe he was just tired. Of course he was tired. It certainly explained why he was so agitated. Sleep deprivation tended to do that to a person. His knotted shoulders had nothing to do with it, to do with the angry cries in the wind, or the way the orange glow from the fire seemed to consume the rest of the light in the room. She should really just go home and get some decent sleep. Right. Just as he was preparing to apologize for his outburst, Khurana took a breath in and gently asked, "What happened down there?" Pipit froze. His heart jumped into his throat, and the scraps of calm he had been reaching for slipped through his fingers. No. He would not talk about that. He could not talk about that. "You don't want to know," he whispered, echoing the very words Link had said to him. A set of unrestrained shudders crashed wildly against the exterior walls in the storm, each clang louder than the one prior. It sounded far too much like the clash of weaponry. The conversation needed to end. It needed to be over. It needed to be done. Khurana bit her lip and broke eye contact. Hesitantly, she continued, "I figured you'd say that. But you should know that sometimes it can be helpful to talk about..." "No," he tried to interrupt, but she didn't stop. "Things like this. You know, to get it off your chest and start to process through it all." He ran his fingers back through his hair and tried to slow his breathing. "Khurana, I don't... Because if you don't talk about it, it tends to build on itself until it... Crash." Khurana startled and yelped in surprise. He was standing, he realized, gripping the edge of the table with white knuckles, jaw tight. He took shallow breaths in and out through his nose. His heart pounded in his chest. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. Boom, boom. His stool lay on its side against the tile. He couldn't do this. It's just too much. It was way too much. "Pipit?" Khurana asked, her voice small and scared. "Are you okay?" For a moment, he couldn't do anything but stare wide-eyed into the still steaming beverage he'd never brought to his lips. Once he could force words past the vice in his throat, he swallowed and said in the steadiest voice he could muster, "Thank you for the tea." Then he turned stiffly and limped off, leaving his mug untouched, his stool overturned, and his confused and startled girlfriend sitting at the table alone. His nightmares that night were particularly vivid. This was Not Anymore, Chapter 7, by Schnarf, 9892. That was good. I like the depiction of it. I really do. It's a good depiction of how it is. That overwhelming fear, if that makes any sense. You know? Pivot was #triggered. I don't know that I would say that, but I don't know that... I don't know. I find it interesting how that has changed a lot now. But I really liked it. It was very... I don't know. It's just interesting how he's dealing with all of that. Talking about how he feels stuck. When he said that, I feel like we can all probably relate to that on some level. Of being stuck. Feeling stuck. As weird as that sounds, but feeling like everyone else has moved on. Everyone else is just moving forward in our lives. But we feel stuck in time and place. We look at our... In a weird way, I think almost all of us deal with this, of... And it's not just with grief or trauma. Like, I think a lot of us deal with that on a whole. Call it anxiety, depression, call it life beating the piss out of you. But I know, like, I personally feel stuck on occasion. Like, people around me getting a new job, friends that I had growing up becoming doctors and moving and getting married and having kids. And I'm married and have a kid now. I've had a kid for a little while. But it's that feeling of being rooted in place. This world is spinning around me. This world is spinning without me. Exactly. We look at friends who maybe got that job promotion. That's something that I've been dealing with. One of my best friends got promoted in a job that I applied for. So that feeling of feeling stuck and having to deal with not being jealous of that, but also coming to reality of like going, yeah, it changes the way the dynamics happen because they're actually now my active boss. My best friend is now my active boss. So it changes the way things are and feeling stuck. Because in the same week, one of my other coworkers got a new job. I've had 5 coworkers in the last 3 months leave. And it feels like I've been applying for jobs and I'm stuck here. I'm never moving on. And it's one of those, it feels bad, man. If that makes sense. So with that, it's a very, I think we all know the feeling of being stuck. I think we all can look back at friends that we may have had in college, high school, church groups, whatever, feel stuck and feel like all we're doing is sitting here. All we're doing is doing the same thing a different day. You know, when I think back, it feels like I should be doing something else. Like, maybe somewhere along the line, I took the wrong exit. And now that basically leaves me in the middle of nowhere. Where I've got friends that grew up and they became doctors. They know, and I think it comes down to passion. They know what they want to do. And they have known for a long time. And I am very much a social and a social chameleon in that sense of whatever I put my hand to, I try and strive at. So I end up, if I need to, I study harder than I have to catch up. So it's one of those, like, people ask, what are you good at? Well, I mean, it sounds weird to say, but anything I try to be, anything I try to do, I feel like I do a good job at. What do you have a passion for? I don't know. It's almost like, have you ever seen the television show The Pretender from the 90s and the mid-aughts? was like this show where this guy could do anything. And at the same time, he didn't know who he was. It's super good. If you can find a place to not pirate it, you should. Because it's one of those mid-aught shows, the 90s, of this guy was raised with no childhood. And he had no recollection. He had no basis for who he was. But he could do anything he basically studied. He could read a book about how to do surgery, and he could do surgery. So it's one of those. It feels bad. Like when you put your hand to something, you excel at it, but it's not your craft to master. If that makes sense. So it's weird and feeling rooted in place, because it may seem like you're changing, but ultimately you're not. You're just doing the same thing. You're just pretending. If that makes any weird sense. I don't know. But it wasn't the most thrilling chapter per se, but I gotta take this progression slowly to get it right. No, I wholeheartedly, you can't have Pippet just going, and I'm better now. It's like, that's not the way things work. Trauma takes time. It takes time. And I'm worse now, and we're fucked. You know, it's a balancing act. You've got to find the time to process, and I think that on levels, it's a basis for personal development. Like, people write feelings that they have felt or they can imagine. It's like when you ask people to write a very specific scenario, they will tell you how they do it. They won't write something that they've never experienced. When you tell them to sit down and write something rapidly, they'll immediately go to their first instinct, which is their own experience. So when you tell someone to write a story about a student failing a test and be very specific about grading, they don't have time to do research on that area's grading. They'll be very specific on how their area is in grading. I say grading because actually this was a recent discussion in one of the Discords that I'm in, of this person got an 80 or something like that, and they felt like it was a terrible grade. I'm like, fuck, an 80 in America, that's a passing grade. It's a B. But other places, it's not so good. It's actually like a C or something. And it's like, that's rough. But I was experiencing it from my vantage point. I didn't go, wait a minute, where are you from to know if that's a good grade? Immediately my first reaction was, that's a good grade! But it wasn't to them because that's not the way that works. The final grade for sociology this year was actually 86. So it is that good for your area. In America, that's a fucking good grade. 70 is a C, so an 86 is a B plus. I think, somewhere around there. Some places that's same in Canada too. Okay, great. So, and some teachers are actually a lot harder too. So it's like one of those, how do you gotta think about it from a perspective. So when you write about trauma and you write about how to deal with trauma, a lot of us go to personal or adjacent personal. You want to write about a death in the family. Maybe you experienced that, or maybe your best friend did, and so you write about that. it's a personal connection. Writing is a very personal connection. That's my wholehearted philosophy. Also, by the way, never asked, is the music too loud? Is it good while reading, especially? I feel like I need to find a different... Exactly. I'll never claim that it's exactly how it's like for all people, but I can say this is how I can be. Exactly. It's... Music is actually pretty soft. Good. Good. That's actually the way I wanted. Turn it up just a little bit. Yeah, it's... You never want to tell somebody how to be. You know, I know people who try to tell people how to feel, and I'm like, no, bump that noise. You know? Like, I will never tell you how you're supposed to feel, but I will try to understand. You know? I think that's a good way to go into the next actual chapter to read. I think it's a good jumping off point into that. We've got... Oof. You love these discussions, by the way. Good. I enjoy having these discussions. So we did a color test at work. I am a very much green personality in the sense of I am very much a thinker and a philosopher. Basically, I am the Hufflepuff of life. You know, it's like I try to plan something out and think about something analytically. I don't know. That's the way I like it. Okay. That sounds like you too. I'll see if I can find the color test. Why don't one week, maybe one Wednesday, we all take the color test. We all take the color test on stream, and then we talk about how that works. How does that sound, actually? If this is the right one, I'll have to find it. I'll forward it to myself. It's actually really cool. Oh, I think this is actually it. Damn touchscreens. Bomb. Okay, I've got it saved, actually. We're going to do that. Why don't we try to do that Wednesday? Get a bunch of people together and take the test and talk about what it means. And how that can affect the way you think about things and the way you write. And I think it would be actually a really cool thing to, like, invite... I'm going to try to invite other people and talk about it, of, like, how that works. You know, how that affects the way they do things. Like, I want to get a small group together and do that. I think it could be fun. Okay, let's read the next one. Enneagrams are fun, too, and scarily accurate. I've never heard of enneagrams. Schnarf, will you send me that on Discord? What's up, Natsu? How are you? We're getting ready to go into the next story. Okay. Time Heals. Chapter 3. A Balanced Meal. By the girl named Hawk. If Cole had to list his favorite things, sleeping would probably be number one. It was one of the few places he could go to get away from other people. And the only place he could go to get away from himself. He would sleep as long as his body would let him, and after that, he would lay in bed until something made him get up. Most days, that something would be his dad telling him to get up for school, or just to get up in general. There was no school today, so his only real obligation was to walk his dog, which he knew he could put off till later. Hey, glad you're here as well, Natsu, and also thanks for the 125 sparks. Number 2 on that list of favorite things would definitely be Sumo. He put his dog higher on the list than any human, because Sumo never asked him what was wrong. He would just know that something was bothering him. Sumo would also never try to get him to talk about it. he would just lick his face and cuddle with him until he felt better, which was all he needed sometimes. He missed when Sumo was small enough to sleep in his bed, but nowadays he preferred being able to feel his legs when he woke up, so most nights, Sumo slept on the couch. Around 8 o'clock, he could hear his dad get up and get ready for work. At first, it seemed like his regular routine. Cole could hear the shower running and smell the coffee brewing, like always, but there was something else that was making so much noise he couldn't fall back to sleep, no matter how hard he tried. It was the uninvited house guest, chatting away at his dad like an old woman with a million grandkids. It was only slightly annoying at first. He tried to put a pillow over his head to drown it out, but then he started laughing about who knows what, and for some reason, that really pissed him off. Hey, thanks. I'm sure the cute kitty would appreciate that too. He admitted that it was nice to hear his dad actually laugh for once. But why did it have to be with this plastic criminal? How could his dad look past the fact that the thing was illegal? More than that, it was dangerous and unpredictable. Maybe his dad was worried the androids would take over the world and was kissing up to it so that they would spare them and put them in a people zoo. After he heard his dad's keys in the lock on the front door, it quieted down enough for him to go back to sleep for a few hours. Without his dad there to badger him out of bed, his stomach was the thing to force him up today. He wrapped a blanket around his shoulders for +1 stealth and +10 warmth. Of course, when he stepped out into the hallway, he could see that Connor was sitting on their couch, rapidly flipping through channels on TV. "Good morning, Cole," Connor said as soon as Cole's feet touched the tile of the kitchen. So much for stealth, he thought, as he shrugged off the blanket and let it flutter to the floor. He glanced at the android, who was smiling courteously with Sumo sprawled across its lap. Its lap? His lap? Cole supposed it was technically a he. He definitely looked like a he. Either way, Cole wasn't ever going to give him the satisfaction of a response, so he turned his attention back to his search for food. He was debating between leftover pizza or something sweet when he heard Sumo's collar jingle and the light thump of the big brute getting off the couch. "Are you going to school today?" Connor asked as he stepped into the kitchen. God, even the way he stood with perfect posture seemed to annoy him. He told his dad that he would try to be nice, but he didn't say anything about not being brutally honest. "Half my teachers are lying in a dumpster somewhere, so school's canceled today," he said as he hoisted himself up on the counter to get the Pop-Tarts from the way back of the top shelf. The android watched him scrupulously as he retrieved the box and hopped back down. "I see. Then perhaps we could do something together today," Connor said in an annoyingly chipper tone. "I'd rather eat a saw blade sandwich," Cole retorted dryly as he ripped the foil packaging off his breakfast. "That sounds like it would be most unpleasant," Connor said, furrowing his brow in confusion. Cole rolled his eyes so hard it almost gave him a headache. He put the Pop-Tart into the toaster and started mentally counting down the seconds until it was ready. It seemed the best way for him to be nice to Connor would be just to ignore him until he went away. "Cole, that pastry contains an obscene amount of sugar and almost no nutritional value. A boy your age should—" "Look," Cole said firmly. He would put up with plenty, but he was not going to get a healthy eating lecture from anyone, especially not from someone who didn't eat. "You're not my doctor, you're not my dad, and you're definitely not my friend. Just leave me alone. Alright, Tin Man?" Connor's placid face turned to a slight frown at the nickname. There was only a short moment of silence between them when Cole retrieved a plate from the dishwasher that he was told to empty last night. "Can I ask you a personal question?" Cole scoffed in response, knowing that no matter what he said, he would probably get asked anyway. Why are you so angry? This wasn't the first time someone had asked him that question. Teachers, his classmates, even that one therapist his dad managed to drag him to at once, had all asked him at some point. He was never really sure how to answer. Most times he just said what he truly felt. He would look them dead in the eye and tell them he just liked being angry. He was about to do this to Connor when their eyes met. Cole was thrown by the look of sincerity on his face, like he was actually concerned for him. He considered being a little more honest with the android. He just liked being angry more than being afraid or sad. But yelling always felt better than crying. That being sad and afraid makes him feel weak, but being angry makes him feel like a man. He wanted to say it, but he knew he would just be wasting his breath. An android would never be able to understand what he was feeling. Instead, he went with the simplest form of communication and presented Connor with both his middle fingers. The frown returned to Connor's face, which prompted a smirk on Cole's. He pressed the button on the toaster, retrieved his breakfast, and backed away, all without breaking eye contact or relinquishing his fingers. He retreated to his room with his half-baked Pop-Tart and a sense of victory. After Cole had eaten and watched a few funny videos online, his mood picked up. It was funny how the smallest, simplest thing could change his mood from bad to good, and vice versa. A rude comment from a classmate, a comment from a stranger online, a failed test, leveling up in a video game, a lonely lunch with no one to sit with, a hug from his dad, being judged for his eating habits by some plastic asshole, a cat video. He decided it would be best not to put off walking sumo any longer for fear of finding a puddle somewhere later. He threw on a thick sweatshirt, knowing it was going to be cold as hell today. When he left his room, Cole noticed his blanket had been folded neatly and placed by his door. He found Sumo in the living room with his head resting on Connor's knee, giving the surgeon the same "please don't be sad" look he would often give him. When Cole picked up the leash, he expected the dog to come running in excitement. But the big beast didn't budge. "Sumo, come on, boy." Sumo looked over at his master for a second before turning back to Connor. Traitor, Cole thought. He hooked the leash around Sumo's collar and started to drag him away when he was struck by a devilish idea. "Hey, Connor, why don't you take Sumo for his walk?" "Walk?" Connor said, as if he had never heard the word. "Yeah, like outside." Cole held out the other end of the leash to him. "Here, just take this and walk around outside until he poops on the neighbor's lawn, then come back inside." Connor looked at the leash, then over at the window with a longing expression. "If I go outside, I could be seen. It'd be best if I stayed in here." "No one's gonna see you," Cole assured him. After searching the hall closet, Cole found one of Dad's jackets, an old black beanie. He hands them to Connor, who looks at them curiously for a second before putting them on. "See? Now you're a human man, just walking his dog. But don't stand like that. Humans don't stand like that." Connor looks down at his lower half, then widens his stance a few feet and relaxed his shoulders, which somehow managed to make him look even more ridiculous. "Nailed it," he said, giving a thumbs up. "I don't know," Connor said hesitantly, playing with the zipper on the jacket. "Come on, you can't just sit inside and watch TV all day. It's depressing," Cole said, all too aware of the irony that his dad said the same thing to him last weekend. "Look, you're alive, right?" Connor's face lit up at the question. "Yes." "Well, what's the point of being alive if you can't enjoy it? Go on, Go feel the sun on your face. Hear the birds sing. All that crap. He was going to need backup. What do you think, boy? Cole said to Sumo. Do you want the Tin Man to take you outside? Sumo began to pant excitedly at the mention of his name and outside. Well, okay. Cole was pleased that his plan had worked. Now, not only did he not have to go out in the cold, but he would have the house to himself, which meant he could do the thing he really wanted to do today. When Connor took the leash, Cole started pushing him toward the door. Just be sure to stay out there for, 25 minutes. He's a big boy. He needs his exercise, he said when Connor and Sumo stepped out onto the front porch. Sumo cocked his head and made a confused whimper when he realized Cole wasn't coming with them. Be good for the Tin Man, Sumo. Why do you keep calling me that, Connor? Said astoundingly, considerably annoyed. Of the 11 elements that make up my body, tin is not. Cole slammed the door on him, definitely uninterested in the android's anatomy lesson. Now that he was alone, he could finally do what he had been itching to do all day. He went to his room and grabbed his supplies from his desk, then went into his dad's room. The walk-in closet had 2 sides. One held his clothes, the other had a set of shelves. Cole wanted what was on the top shelf, just out of his reach. When Cole was younger, he used to have to get to a kitchen chair, but he'd grown enough in the last few years that if he stood on the first shelf, he could reach it. First was the bottle of whiskey. Cole kept a close eye on this bottle and knew how much his dad drank. Honestly, he was doing better than he was before. There used to be a time when there was a new bottle twice a week, then a short period of time when there was no bottle at all. But it came back earlier this year. Thankfully, it wasn't going very fast lately. Typically 2 or 3 drinks a night. Today, it looked as if it hadn't moved at all from yesterday. But maybe he was just imagining it. He pushed the bottle to the side and found what he really wanted. It was a small box with tax shit written on it in black marker. Damn it, why do I have to be so short? He thought, as he stretched as far as his arm could get it. He sat on it with the floor, shuffled through random papers until he found a photo. The corners had begun to bend a little, but the image was still clear. It was a picture of a young woman in a hospital gown, a young Hank, and a newborn baby. Cole assumed that this was his birth and the woman was his mother. His assumptions were all they were. His dad never liked to talk about her. Cole didn't start to question where she was until he was in 1st grade, and all the other kids in his class were making gifts for Mother's Day. Daddy, why don't I have a mom like everyone else? You do, kiddo. She's just not here anymore. She died when you were really little, but she loves you very much. She loved you with all of her heart. The memories stung him right in the gut. He found this photo one day when he was 6 and was left with an inattentive babysitter and was looking for hidden Christmas presents. Even though he didn't fully understand at the time what it meant, he knew it was something special. It made him feel happy to look at it, to not just hear that she loved him, but to see her smile. To view his mother hold him in her arms made him feel safe, even though she wasn't there to do it now. He wanted to keep the photo, but didn't want his dad to know he had been snooping. That's when he got an idea to make a copy for himself. His first attempt at drawing it was crude, to say the least, but 6 years had given him plenty of time to practice, especially after the accident. When he was lying in the hospital bed, all he could do was draw. Now, he considered himself to be pretty good. Not great, just pretty good. However, the one thing he knew he could draw and make great was this. He had 5 30-page sketch pads full of copies of this picture. He liked to draw other things too, but drawing his family was his go-to. He propped the photo up against the box and flipped to a blank page in his sketch pad. He was feeling colored pencils today. Crayons were cool, too, but he used them all against the green. He had used up all of the green he needed of the ugly hospital wallpaper. Sometimes he liked to use his felt-tipped pens, but he wanted to do it in color, and he definitely wasn't going to risk breaking out the paints again. Not after last time. He hovered the pencil tip over the page as he thought about how he wanted to draw it today. He used to just copy it directly, but that got boring around the 50th time. Now he tries to make it in different style or theme every time. Sometimes he would draw them as superheroes with capes and masks, or as pirates or ninjas. His favorite was the time he drew each of them as characters from his favorite anime, giving them big eyes and spiky hair. Even little baby him. When he's really mad at his dad, he would draw him with X's for eyes. He settled on what he wanted to draw and began to trace his dad's outline. The light sound of the wax pencil tip against the paper filled the room, and just like that, Cole was in the zone. It was his happy place, where nothing mattered, or even if he messed up, it was okay, because no one had to know. Cole had a tendency to lose track of time when he was drawing, but it didn't feel like it took him long to finish this time. He's drawn his father and himself as they are now. His dad with his wavy gray hair and wrinkles. Himself with his unruly brown hair and 12-year-old face. His mother, however, was drawn in pencil, lightly. She's almost not visible. Like she's a ghost. He's proud of this one. He had been getting better at drawing the little details, like the wrinkles on his dad's face, or the doofy gap in his front teeth. And even though drawing yourself is super hard, he managed to do a pretty alright job. I wonder if she was artistic. I sure as hell don't get it from Dad, he wondered. He was admiring his work when his vision started to become blurry. Damn it, stop that, he thinks, as a few tears drop on the edge of the paper. Why are you crying over her? You didn't even know her. You're pathetic. Pull your shit together. He wiped his eyes and started to clean up. He was putting the pencils away when he heard the front door open and Sumo wildly bound across the floor. He looked at his phone. Of course, the dumb machine had been gone for exactly 25 minutes. He rushes to put the photo back in its spot in the middle of the pile of random papers, and the box back precisely where it was before. Cole, you were right. I did enjoy being outside, Connor said joyously from the living room, although I didn't hear any birds. Cole? Cole opened his dad's door just a crack and peered out into the hallway. Connor was now across the hall, standing at his bedroom door. Cole? The surgeon said, knocking on his door. After a few seconds with no response, Connor opened it and looked inside. Cole? He called again, but this time he sounded worried. Cole, where are you? He sounded like a child freaking out when they couldn't find their parents, even though they just saw them a few seconds ago. How pitiful. That's when he was struck by a devilish idea. Part 2. He opened the door another few inches and snuck back to the closet. He stood on the bottom shelf and slid the door shut just enough to see out. As he thought, within a few seconds Connor came in. Cole, are you in here? Connor said cautiously as he walked around surveying the room. Cole had to choke back a laugh when Connor stepped in front of the door. He slid it open. Boo! Cole shouted as he leapt off the shelf onto Connor's back. The two of them tumbled to the floor with a large thud. Connor smacked his head against the bedpost while Cole gracefully barrel-rolled away from him. The rush of the jump and seeing Connor's face was enough to make him burst out into laughter. Not cat video laughter, like a real-life laugh that you feel all over your body. The kind of laugh Cole didn't do nearly enough lately. It was short-lived, however, as when he looked over at the android, he noticed he wasn't moving. His face was blank, and his eyes were halfway closed, and were staring off into nothing. Hey, you okay? Cole asked. To no response, he crawled over to him, waving his hand in front of his face. Yo, Tin Man. Morning, Connor said, but his voice was different. It was dry and flat, robotic, one might say. It was as if it was a pre-recorded message. It was so loud and sharp that it made him jump back from away from him. Your Aggery 8000 has sustained damage to its main system. Shit, I must have broke it. Dad's gonna be so pissed, Cole muttered. Warning, damage to pilot component number 17-12. Cole had no clue what that meant, but it couldn't have been good. Warning, thermal expansion detected in main power cell. Warning, thermal explosion imminent. Cole knew what that meant. It was definitely not good. Explosion? Did it just say explosion? No. Cole panicked. I can't burn down the house. No, not my house. His heart was beating uncontrollably. This was the only house he'd lived in. The only one he'd ever known. He couldn't let it go up in flames. We must have a fire extinguisher somewhere. Where is it? Shit, fuck. He tried to pick Connor up in an attempt to move him out of the house, but he was much too heavy. Grabbing his arm, Cole tried to drag him, but was barely able to get a few inches before he lost his grip and fell back to the floor. Emergency services have been notified. Great. Now, not only was he going to burn his house down, but the cops would show up and know they had an android there. Fuck, shit. Please evacuate the area. Shit. Oh, no. Thank you for choosing CyberLife. Cole was so scared. He couldn't move. He couldn't even breathe. He covered his ears, screwed his eyes shut tight, and braced himself. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When nothing happened, he slowly opened one of his eyes. Connor was looking at him with a wide smile, then let the android let out a wicked laugh. You asshole! Cole cursed, removing his hands from his ears and slamming them to the floor. Thought you were gonna blow up or something. You really scared me. Well, it serves you right. You scared me first. I didn't know where you went. I was afraid something happened to you. Cole was still in shock. He hadn't realized that androids could have a sense of humor, much less cruel, sick ones like that. Connor stood up, then reached out his hand to help Cole off the floor. You must be getting hungry. I can make you something if you like. No thanks, he said sharply, ignoring Connor's hand to pick himself up. He was so mad he almost left without his pad or pencils. What's that? Connor asked, watching him scoop up his supplies. None of your business, Cole barked, storming out of the room and back to his own. Frickin' androids, he huffed. Now that Sumo was walked and his picture was drawn, he had no reason to leave his room. He planned on staying locked away until his dad came home, and even later. That was about until half an hour later when he heard the sizzling of a pan and smelled garlic cooking. This was Time Heals, Chapter 3, A Balanced Meal, by the girl named Hawk. That was good. I'm really liking the I know, I love that last scene. I'm dying over here. I know, it's just like one of those. I love Detroit Become Human. It's a game that I played once and I'm like, okay, I am happy with how I got it, but I'm gonna like wait about a year and maybe try to replay it. The earlier scenes had some touching feels too. I like the combination. Here's how I was hoping it would pan out, but I kind of like the way it went anyway. I was hoping. You almost choked on your Ferrero Rocher. Nice. That's always a good thing to choke on, though. I thought that Connor would catch Cole, and then Connor would make an exact duplicate, but Cole would throw it away. As it's not the picture in and of itself, it's the act. If that makes any weird sense. It's not the exact copy of the picture, but it's the emotion behind it. And he would assume that Connor felt no emotion by it. So it made the picture invalid, if that makes any weird sense. Okay. Well, I've received no less than like 5 notifications from Google. News story on Nintendo Switch about Breath of the Wild VR. One of them's like, it's not exactly VR. It's VR, but not exactly. Now it's like, VR is ugly. And it's like, whoa. I know, right? Either the cat has attacked you. It's VR. Well, yes, but no. But yes. But no. Snarf, are you okay? Do we need to tell somebody? I'm kind of excited, but I'm like, I don't know how I feel about... I'm not a VR person. But at the same time, I also want to try VR chat. Because I'm like, you know, I appreciate some good VR, I guess. There we go. Why'd you get to center that? VR games will make you lose sense of your surroundings. But it's like, it's not VR at the same time. Watch the video now, gotta see the VR. Sounds like a plan. Believe me, that happened the first time I played VR. I've never played VR, and I want to so bad. Just a little bit more. There we go. There we go. Ha! Shit might induce motion sickness. Damn it. Are you motion sickness prone? Because if so, that sucks. Tara, would I try to read in the car? Yes. Oh. Yeah. Why is it not wanting to save the stream title? Probably too long, maybe. Do we need to call for IT support? No. Try to cut as many words as I can. There we go. Jesus. It's like, we're not gonna have that. They just say, have you tried turning it off and back on again? Yes. That's entirely what my boss would do. Like, hey, something's wrong with this program that we use. Have you tried clearing your cache and cookies? Okay, that's not the problem, but sure. Let's say I have. It's like, your shitty program just doesn't work. Do not blame my cache and cookies. I appreciate you. It's like, thanks. You know, oh, that's right. I need to do this one as well. Do-do-do. I also have I did put in a, okay. I did put in a chat command. That way people can see. Boom. Automatically puts in what we're reading. Ha! I love my chatbots. Chatbots are the greatest, aren't they? Good bot. Very good. My old Twitch bot would spam the shit out of stuff, and it's like, no, you really need to stop. You really need to stop. What is that one gif, Filthy Frank? It's time to stop. Thanks. It was terrible. It was constantly spamming stuff, and it's like, no, I told you to do this like every hour. Nope, we got to do it. It's like, come on, man, you're killing me, Smalls. Okay. Hydration bot. That's the best part about Mixer. No hydration bot. You should be drinking water. No shit, really? No shit. Yeah. You should be drinking more water. Really? Is that what I should be doing? Thank God you told me. Okay. Let's get into it. I wish that, hang on. I wish that, fanfiction.net would tell you how many words are in a single chapter instead of all together. Because, like, it's like, this one has, this one, the other one I'm reading later on, it's like, chapters, 11, words, 55,000, or 55,000, it's like, but how many in this chapter? Just asking for a friend. Okay, let's get into this. Galactic threat, predator, and prey. Chapter 6, Hunters Among Legends. By Cosmic Sword 11. The wait was now one day away. Alexa's appeal to return home to planet Earth, just as she had so dearly requested. She knew that she was going to miss the Shadow Hunter Yautja clan, especially Scar. But she figured that it would always remain as a memory in her mind, which she would never forget about. After all, the mark of honor was still permanently engraved into her flesh, therefore giving her the status as a blooded Yautja hunter by law. Alexa was still a human, and not a pureblood Yautja like the rest of the clan, so she would certainly be an interesting individual among the rest of human society back on Earth. But she figured that the possibilities of humanity discovering that they were no longer alone were quite slim after the Antarctic expedition to Buivete failed spectacularly. This was because of the possibility that the data the expedition team managed to get a hold of from the Antarctic pyramid was lost in the skirmish that took place there, and without the pyramid standing underneath the thick layer of Antarctic ice, the secrets that the expedition team uncovered could potentially be lost forever. It would, however, be quite a surprise to her co-workers at Weyland-Yutani to see her walk the doors, alive and well, after them and her family all presumed her to have died, along with the rest of the fallen expedition crew. Alexa could not wait until the moment would finally arrive tomorrow to feel her feet on Earth's fertile soil once again after what felt like an eternity in God knows where exactly in outer space the clan's mothership was venturing. However, despite all this excitement to it the long last come home, Alexa still felt the need to say her final farewells to the Yautja aboard. They shocked her with their monstrous appearance, but were truly civilized beings, the only exception of course being Cage, with their own cultural norms and traditions, though any normal human might consider them to be slightly morbid. Even Alexa herself thought the whole hunting ideology of collecting skulls of whatever dangerous life form they slaughtered in combat as a symbolic kill trophy was a bit cadaverous. Regardless of what her own personal thoughts on these Yautja traditions were, she still respected them, since the hunts were all sanctioned by a strict and deeply consecrated honor code, therefore preventing the human hunters from spilling any innocent blood and tarnishing their honor. The hunters were men of honor and self-morality, and the name of their hunts, an all-encompassing goddess, Paya, to which Alexa highly admired. At this time, Scar knew that these strange thoughts of the human female had to mean something. They were keeping him up that night, forcing him to ponder about them for hours. he just lay there in his bed, staring up at the ceiling as he thought about whatever was coming to his mind at the moment, which seemed to be purely about Alexa. No doubt, Scar felt enraged when he saw Cage trying to spill her blood with a dagger in his claws, and nothing short of pure malevolence filling his eyes. He also remembered that he was still furious when Cage was given the sentence of exile for the attempted murder of Alexa, rather than the death like he had sincerely hoped for. With the weird thought that he had whether or not it was possible for a Yautja and a human to mate. Scar wasn't sure where that came from, but he knew that it was something like the flowing inside his mind. He undeniably felt that way for her. So that was it. Scar now knew that he was officially xenophilic. The only thing now was to determine how exactly he would break this news to her. Scar didn't just want to mate with her on a one-night stand like he had done before with a couple Yautja females in the past, but instead he wanted to have her as his life mate. He gave her the mark of honor with his own blood, so therefore Scar felt that she should be his one life mate for the rest of her life, as he was most likely going to outlive Alexa, since Yautja life cycles were much longer than humans. Scar wondered if Alexa thought about him in the same way, but he suspected that she may see him otherwise. He didn't want to face rejection from her. He didn't want to face rejection from her, or find out that Alexa saw him more as a brother than a potential mate. Alexa seemed like the perfect mate for him. She was a skilled warrior, no doubt, and he didn't feel intimidated by her nearly as much as he was by typical Yautja women. That was what Scar always desired in a hypothetical life mate, if he was ever going to make the grandiose choice to limit himself to only one mate for the rest of his life, or until his life mate was to die first. He concluded that he knew that he would have to tell her after the ceremony tomorrow, where both Alexa and Scar would be honored for successfully killing a xenomorph queen, along with several other xenomorph drones in the process. Scar was looking forward to the ceremony as well, since his fellow brethren would no longer see him as just a young blood anymore, but as something far greater. Knowing that he still needed to get some rest for the night, Scar began to slowly close his eyes and fall into a state of slumber, where he would dream about the one thing and one thing only: Alexa. Morning soon arrived aboard the mothership, and the ceremony honoring Alexa and Scar on their hunt would commence very shortly. The service was initially going to take place a day earlier, but it was postponed with very short notice due to Cage's precocious infidelity towards the clan, since he needed to be trialed for the crimes he committed. With all said and done, this was something that both Alexa and Scar couldn't wait for. Alexa was strapping on her Yautja hunting outfit, which she now had become accustomed to wearing, she had to admit. Even though it was originally designed for a completely different alien species, the Yautja attire she wore matched with her quite well. The heated fishnets, gauntlets, biomask, and loincloth. They all seemed to look great on her for some reason she could not quite figure out yet. Alexa felt that the only thing she would change would be the hair, since she wasn't too fond of having her hair braided into dreadlocks like the fleshy tendrils of the Yautja body. On a Yautja's body. As soon as she got to return home to Earth, Alexa planned to fix her hair back to the way she liked it, for all these events aboard the Shadowhunter clan's mothership took place. She still kept them this way while aboard the Yautja vessel, because the fellow clan members seemed to give her respect, since she proved her worth, and also looked somewhat like one with all that hunting armor on, despite them all, especially the females, towering over her like giants. Nonetheless, Alexa planned to resume her old life back on Earth, but she had no idea how it would work. What if the world had changed while she was with the Shadowhunter Yautja clan out in deep space? What were those answers found inside the Antarctic Pyramid? What about those answers found inside the Antarctic Pyramid before it was destroyed? These were questions that Alexa could not ignore, as she stared into her own reflection, shining on the biomask in her hands. Returning to a normal human life wasn't going to be easy for Alexa. Following this astounding experience with another sentient race from beyond the stars. She hoped that this wouldn't be the last time she would ever see the Yautja species, but Alexa felt the exact opposite way for the xenomorphs, since she still wasn't entirely sure what those behemoths in black were supposed to be. Yet the presence and fiendish appearance alone was enough to send chills down her spine and make her skin crawl. It was no wonder the Yautja hated the xenomorphs so much and deemed them as the ultimate prey. As with Alexa's limited knowledge of the vast diversity of sentient life forms in the Milky Way, she thought they were the most terrifying thing she had ever seen in her entire life. The blast door to Alexa's private quarters flew open, and in walked Scar, already dressed in his hunting armor for the commemoration taking place very soon. Alexa, the service will be beginning shortly. We must hurry if we are to be honored for our victory on the hunt back on the pyramid. He spoke to her, assuring Alexa that they had very little time before the tribute to the first human female to ever become blooded under Yautja law, along with the Yautja hunter who almost died out in the frosty winds with her. Alexa knew that Scar was right, as she had just finished strapping on her traditional Yautja hunting attire, so time was not meant to be wasted. Of course, Scar. Let's just go, she replied as she turned to leave her private quarters with Scar following right behind. Scar picked up his pace until he was walking beside Alexa through the mothership's corridors, which is when Alexa spoke up again. I really have to owe it to you and the Shadowhunter clan, Scar. I was certain that I was going to die out there in the freezing Antarctic climate, but I'm still alive, and about to be honored by your clan for our successful hunt, stated Alexa, expressing her gratitude toward the Yautja hunter. He slightly chuckled, not in a mocking tone, but rather in one that sounded like he was amused. It is our clan, Alexa. You will always be one among the Shadowhunter bloodline, even if we are worlds or light years apart, Scar said in response to Alexa's statement. These words sank into Alexa's mind as the two of them continued to walk the ship's corridors. She thought about what Scar said to her, agreeing with her that it was indeed true. Alexa would soon be returned to Earth, possibly never going to see another Yautja, part of the Shadowhunter clan, or not, again in her lifetime. Well, she would be back on Earth living a, hopefully, normal human life with her old friends and family. She would always have the Yautja mark of honor engraved into her skin, forever cementing her as a blooded Yautja hunter. Should humanity learn the truth about the existence of extraterrestrial beings within the Milky Way galaxy, it could be possible that Alexa's friends and family back on Earth, whom she refused to abandon, might discover her induction into a Yautja clan. Alexa highly doubted that her family back on Earth would notice this at all, so she didn't bother dawning on it about any longer within her mind. She just kept her head still and focused on the ceremony about to happen on the other side of the approaching blast door, right in front of them both. The blast door itself opened to reveal a room that looked quite familiar to Alexa, as it was the Hall of Righteousness where Cage had his trial held a couple days prior. It now became apparent to Alexa the Hall of Righteousness in Yautja culture was meant to serve as both a court of law and ceremonial location where the elders would honor the hunters victorious in their hunts. Many eyes were looking at both Scar and Alexa, all of which were cheerful and exultant to see the brave, unlikely hunters that Alexa and Scar were. Though Alexa was admittedly a little nervous, she knew inside that she had nothing to worry about, with no xenophobic Yautja around to try and slaughter her this time. She looked straight ahead and saw yet another familiar face, Elder Zekiah. The Yautja elder appeared to be holding something that looked like one of the combi sticks that she and Scar were using in the training arena the day before, only this one was quite ornamental in its design. She wondered why it appeared to be so uniquely decorative compared to the ones that she and Scar used before, suggesting that maybe it was designed that way because it was a prized version of the weapon to be awarded to her for her successful killing a xenomorph queen. It seemed like the only plausible explanation, but then again, she always managed to come across unique surprises within the Yautja culture. So Alexa really couldn't tell if her predictions would be correct or not. The best way to truly know would be just to wait and find out for herself then. Alexa and Scar approached the Yautja Elder before halting once they both stood at the center of the Hall of Righteousness, capturing the attention of all the clan members gathered inside. Alexa Woods, on behalf of the Yautja of the Shadowhunter clan, we present to you an ornate combi stick for successfully killing a Kende Amada queen. This weapon is for you to keep, etched with your blood as a hunter, said Elder Zekyok, proudly presenting the weapon to her, like he was full of pride to bestow her with it. This was because he truly was proud to give an honor to Alexa for proving her worth, not just as a Yautja hunter, but also a decorated member of the Shadowhunter bloodline. Alexa then took 2 steps forward to accept the prize from the Yautja Elder. The honor's all mine, Elder Zekyok. She spoke to him as she reached out her arms with the palms wide open for the combi stick. That was when another one of the clan's elders approached the two of them with a ceremonial dagger crafted from the bladed tail of a xenomorph in his hands. This caused Alexa to become confused, wondering why a ceremonial dagger would be required in a ritual like this, let alone any dagger at all, since she knew that she'd be receiving her own combi stick instead. She just had to speak up and question the Yautja Elder why this would be involved, because it was staggering her beyond belief. What's with the dagger, Elder? Alexa questioned. For this weapon to truly be yours, Alexa, we must draw blood from your flesh. When the blood touches the weapon, it is yours until death claims your life, explained Elder Zekyok. Alexa now understood why this Yautja ritual involved using a ceremonial dagger. It was essentially a way of Yautja hunters swearing blood onto their weapons to claim them as their own. Swearing my blood upon the steel and whatever the hell this weapon was made of, I get it now. Alexa thought to herself as she took the Elder Zekyok's words. With the palms of her hands still open wide, Alexa prepared herself as the other Yautja Elder brought the edge of the blade close to her skin. The whole thing felt like getting a needle to her, slightly painful and unpleasant, but over before you know it. The blade of the ceremonial dagger pierced her skin and began to draw out a little of the blood. Alexa cringed slightly from the tiny amount of pain, but just carried onward with the ceremony. With the dagger now removed from Alexa's hand, she looked down at it and saw the small wound expelling a tiny dose of her blood that seemed like it was the right enough size to complete this Yautja ritual. She then felt Elder Zekyok placing the combi stick into her hands, to which she tightened her grip on it. The Yautja Elder then leaned in slightly and whispered to her, "Repeat after me, Alexa," he said in a quiet voice that only he and Alexa could hear. Alexa assumed that now she would complete her part of the ceremony by swearing an oath to the clan's main elder as an official blooded warrior of the Shadowhunter clan. She nodded in response and waited to hear the words she would utter to pledge upon herself and the clan. I, Alexa Woods, began Elder Zekyok. I, Alexa Woods, she repeated, just as instructed with her head bowed down. Solemnly vow to uphold my honor, Elder Zekyok continued. Solemnly vow to uphold my honor, Alexa reiterated again. To hunt evil and protect the innocent, Elder Zekyok carried on. To hunt evil and protect the innocent, Alexa said in response. To only kill those deemed worthy, Elder Zekyok continued once more. To only kill those deemed worthy. Alexa kept on repeating the words of the Yautja Elder. To bring honor to the Shadowhunter clan, Elder Zekyok spoke yet again. To bring honor to the Shadowhunter clan, Alexa repeated once more. And to serve and honor Paya until death claims me too, Elder Zekyok finished. And to serve and honor Paya until death claims me too, Alexa stated, concluding the oath that she would swear upon herself before looking back up at Elder Zekyok's face. Congratulations, Alexa. You are now officially a member of the Shadowhunter clan for as long as you shall live. With that combi stick being your symbol of a true Yautja warrior, he spoke to Alexa in a voice that genuinely sounded like he was proud of her achievements, to which he indeed was. Roars of applause from the clan members filled the air of the Hall of Righteousness, chanting out Alexa's name, fully translated to better suit her human ears. They were undeniably thrilled to have her now officially a member of their bloodline, even if she would be leaving for her home planet tomorrow. Never once had a member of another sentient species within the Milky Way been identified with the Yautja Mark of Honor, making Alexa a truly unique warrior among the likes of the purebloods around her. This would certainly mark a great change in the way that Yautja enforced and lived by the sacred honor code. Or maybe it wouldn't. Alexa couldn't tell for sure, but she did know that she was going to miss all this once she returned to Earth. As she raised the new ornamental combi stick into the air, she felt more alive aboard the Shadowhunter clan's mothership than ever before. She never imagined that the members of another sentient species would cheer for her, but it was indeed true. While it was great while it lasted, Alexa knew the ceremony was not over yet, as the elders still had to honor Scar for his efforts on the hunt, as well as passing the mark of honor down to her as a worthy bearer of such a privileged symbol on her skin. Alexa could only wonder on what exactly Scar's ritual would be, since he was already blooded before the hunt on the Antarctic Pyramid, therefore creating a differentiating sacramental passage than hers to follow. Hey, what's up, Joe? He most likely wouldn't be literally swearing his blood upon his weapon in the same manner that Alexa was instructed to by the clan elder. She rose down her combi stick, looked away from the crowd behind her, and focused her line of sight on Scar and Elder Zekyak, ready to take in whatever way these Yautja had planned toward Scar for his noble efforts on the hunt. Whatever it was, Alexa was unsure it would be like, since she was greeted with surprise after surprise within almost every aspect of Yautja culture. I'm trying to play the stream, but I can only see the chat. Okay. Elder Zekyak approached Scar, placing his open claw on his shoulder. Scar, my son, you are no longer a young blood, now that you have successfully killed a Khurana queen, and passed the mark of honor to an unlikely, yet highly worthy prodigy. The Yautja elder spoke to Scar, undoubtedly proud that he was able to achieve such a feat. Also, that Skyward nearly killed you after you were steadily healing from that massive impalement wound of the Khurana queen tailblade. You survived the Kende twice, without it corrupting your honor, something that only very few Yautja could ever achieve in the entirety of their life cycles. That I admire from you greatly. He continued to say in regard to Scar's hunt, that proved he was no longer a young blood like his peers saw him before the hunt at the Antarctic Pyramid. Thank you, Elder, Scar said, in response to the wise and prominent words of Elder Zekyak. Everything he said to him brought Scar in high spirits, as he was not just happy to be alive and continuing hunting with his Yautja brethren of the Shadowhunter clan, but also because he had a subconscious fear of death that kept growing on him since he almost died twice. It would have been a brutally agonizing way to depart from his life. As luck would have it, Scar did not croak, and he was ready to return to his hunts, wherever in the Milky Way galaxy they would be next. For your efforts of killing a Khurana queen on your previous hunts and fending death off with your own very eyes, the Shadowhunter clan elders are pleased to present you with this weapon to honor you, said Elder Zekyak, as another one of the clan's elder came up to the two of them, holding some kind of fancy-looking weapon. It wasn't a ceremonial dagger. It was much larger, but it appeared to be made out of the exact same material those smaller, ritualistic blades are comprised of. When Scar's eyes saw the blade in the hands of the clan elder, he was struck with awe. It was a Yautja katana, a type of sword that only the most prestigious and renowned Yautja could use on their hunts. To add this blade to his collection was beyond jubilant to him. Even Alexa found the blade to be very extravagant, admittedly a little jealous that he received a better weapon than she did. Scar, we present to you a Yautja katana for you to bear. Use it well on your hunts, wherever they shall be next. You are a young blood no more. The full potential of your Yautja life awaits you. I guarantee that you will be remembered as a Yautja hero, and there will be many females awaiting you out there," said Elder Zakyok, taking the blade from the other Yautja elder and carefully passing it over to Scar. Full of pride, more than he'd ever before in his life, Scar took the katana from Elder Zakyok's hand and stared at the blade with amazement. "Thank you, Paya," he muttered under his breath, out of pure wonder and disbelief that he was being granted such a weapon, expressing his gratitude to his goddess Paya, as many Yautja would. "Paya is indeed proud of you, Scar. She's granted you the chance to live again, and now you must honor her again by maintaining the sacred honor code. Use this katana to your will in your next hunts," instructed Elder Zakyok, commanding Scar to carry on his Yautja hunting traditions to fulfill his life to the maximum potential. Scar, of course, was going to continue pursuing his hunts after being gifted such an honorary weapon from the clan elders, just as any typical Yautja male would do. "Of course, Elder Zakyok," said Scar in response to the imperatives given him by the clan elders, willing to do just as he had been given orders for. However, something else was on his mind. Where exactly would he choose to hunt next? There were many options to choose from, despite the tendency of the Yautja species to generally avoid contact with species that had already developed technology for interstellar travel, which there were actually a significant portion of present within the Milky Way galaxy. He pondered the possibilities of maybe hunting on Earth, but memory recalling the freezing Antarctic climate persuaded him to think again. "You like seeing Kuro here?" "I agree." No part of him wanted to endure that again, though he was still curious to know what Earth was really like. All the stories that Alexa told him only made him eager to see for himself the reality of the humans' home planet. Scar's train of thought was quickly interrupted by the voice of the Yautja elder, calling out to those who were observing the ceremony. "Brothers and sisters of the Shadowhunter clan, Alexa Woods and Scar have brought honor to our bloodline of Paya's might. For as long as they shall live, these hunters shall be recognized as our clan's heroes. As for Alexa, she may be the most surprising Yautja I have ever met, and I am proud to officially declare her a member of the Shadowhunter clan, even if she is scheduled to return to Earth tomorrow, just as she had humbly requested," stated Elder Zakyok, announcing to the clan members, with delight present in his speech. He knew that these two hunters were truly exceptional beyond saying, as told by a feeling he had from within his gut. Shortly after the ceremony, inside the Hall of Righteousness concluded, everyone left and migrated off to the dining hall to feast upon a meal fit well enough for Paya herself, just like the several times before. Alexa was going to have her own dish specially prepared for her, since she was the only human among the likes of the pureblood Yautja of the Shadowhunter clan, thanks to the female Yautja healer Guyitan. Efforts to convince the clan's servants to do so. While they awaited for their food to arrive, Alexa used Scar's recommendation of diluting the strong taste of Clinip with water, since the Yautja alcoholic beverage was far too strong for her taste alone. She may have been a blooded Yautja by law now, but Alexa certainly did not have any plans to eat or drink like one of their kind. The Yautja all around her really didn't seem to mind either way, not that it even mattered. It was this moment when Guyitan decided to break the silence and spoke to Alexa, as the two of them sitting next to each other once again. "How does it feel to officially become one of us, Alexa?" she questioned the human female with curiosity. "I'm not gonna lie, it does feel a little bit strange, Guyitan, especially since I'm leaving for Earth tomorrow. Having a sister who belongs to a different species who lives light years away. That's something my younger self wouldn't believe, even if I told her myself. Yet it somehow happened to me, and I'll never be the same afterwards," replied Alexa, stating that while she was willing to accept the terms of becoming a new member of the Shadowhunter Yautja clan, Alexa still found it hard to believe that it was true. Guyitan also took notes of how Alexa referred to her as a sister, something she was actually quite grateful to hear. She could not deny that Alexa was the best sister she could possibly ask for, since Alexa never looked down upon her like many others have in the past. Alexa then looked at the female Yautja healer with a look on her face that surely meant that she was going to yearn for her surprisingly friendly presence for many years to come. "I'm certainly going to miss you, Gui-tan," said Alexa. "Is there any other members of the clan you will miss as well, Alexa?" "Certainly I'm not the only one," Gui-tan asked once more. "Well, there is one other Yautja among this clan's bloodline that I'll miss more than all. It's Scar. Kind of a shame, really. I feel like the two of us were starting to hit it off after Cage was sentenced into exile," Alexa retorted as she looked over at Scar, who was situated opposite from her at the table, feeling slightly thwarted about having to say what she presumed would be her final farewells to Scar the next day. Little did she know about the thoughts that were running amok inside of his head. Scar heard those words Alexa spoke, learning that she too wished that their bond didn't have to end so soon. It brought a sliver of hope to him that maybe, just maybe, Alexa would agree to his proposition. The only problem was, Scar was not sure when the right time to say so was. Obviously, blurting it out at the very moment inside the dining hall might not serenade so well with Alexa and the other members of the clan, so that option was put out of the picture. Time was running short, and if he did not make up his mind on when to break the news to Alexa and his fellow Yautja brethren, Scar no doubt missed the one and only chance to propose a sincere request for Alexa Woods to become his life mate. He began to run through possibilities of when should he reveal his true inner feelings toward this human female. But his train of thought was quickly interrupted when the servants entered the dining hall to bring out the feast for tonight's ceremony of Alexa and Scar's triumphant victory on their hunt. Scar noticed that a significant amount of cooked meat had been presented in addition to the usually bloody raw meat, an assortment of exotic fruits that Yautja normally consumed. He thought it was strange that humans preferred to cook their meat rather than eating it rare, just as any typical Yautja would think so. However, with the thought about Alexa flowing freely inside his mind, Scar began to wonder just how this cooked meat, the way humans preferred to eat, would taste. There would clearly be no harm in just trying it out to see what it tasted like. So Scar decided that he would give the cooked meat a crack. Looking around, Scar saw that every single one of his Yautja brothers and sisters were of course gorging at the raw, uncooked meat dripping with blood. Then he saw Alexa eating some of the cooked meat, and it encouraged him to try it once. Scar reached his hand over and grabbed a relatively small slab of cooked meat off the platter and gave it a sniff. The smell wasn't revolting, just odd to him. He then slowly but steadily took a bite, to which he was surprised that it actually didn't taste as bad as he would have initially thought. While he was satisfied with trying out the cooked steak, Scar still wanted to know if he preferred it over the rare meat that he had been eating for his entire life as a Yautja hunter. He took another piece of meat, this time one that was raw, and saturated in whatever blood of the creature it originally came from. After trying them both, Scar actually seemed to prefer the cooked meat over the rare meat to his shock. Was this because of the thoughts of Alexa Woods he had, or was it something else? Whatever the case was, Scar knew that Alexa had changed him in some way or another, and he couldn't deny that one bit at all. He knew that he had to confess to her soon, but his hunger drove him to focus more on his dinner that night. Perhaps he would get a chance to voice himself before Alexa would be gone on her home planet, light years away from the Shadow Hunter clan for the rest of her life. It would have seemed like a last-minute approach, but that was all that Scar could do now. This was Galactic Threat, Predator and Prey, Chapter 6, Hunters Among Legend, by Cosmic Sword 11. That was really good. I do have a couple thoughts, and I don't know the writing process. So the couple thoughts I can almost tell these are written a while apart, if that makes sense. Okay. I can sort of tell that they're written a ways apart from each other. In a weird way, because I feel like it refers to itself a lot and basically almost as a reminder. Most recent chapter I wrote was more exciting. This one, yes, they're written like that. Okay, so my thought, and again, as I've always said, you can basically take or leave what I thought. of it refers to itself a lot and almost reminds the reader of something. But if you were to read it back to back to back to back, it's constantly reminding you, yes, she's human and she's blooded. She's the first human to be blooded. I feel like it keeps going over that and mulls it over, and it just keeps going on that. And I'm like, okay, if you were to read these like months apart, that is a reminder. But if you read them like back to back to back, it gets to the it almost treads over the same ground a lot, if that makes sense. A good example of this would be like trying to think of a good example that everyone knows. It would be like if in, say, I don't know how versed in biblical vernacular you are, but if you were to remind somebody, and King David, son of Jesse, went to, this area and did a battle, as he was the son of Jesse and was not a true line from the king. If you're constantly treading over that, it becomes part of the furniture. And if you look at a lot of novels, that's not how they're written. Again, that's, we're thinking about it novel-wise, of back-to-back sequential chapters that are meant to be read back-to-back-to-back-to-back. The way fan fiction is written is very different in the sense of, like you write, of chapter 1 maybe here, chapter 2 maybe in 3-4 months, however long. I don't know the writing process, because I don't write. But in binge reading, I've noticed it. I think that's only because I read it like this, in a sense of week after week after week. It's like if an episode of The Flash kept reminding you that Barry Allen is the Flash, and he lost his mom or something. It becomes part of what's going on. Okay. The only other thing that I noticed from this chapter, was the way that the oath was said, and I think that's merely pedantic for me. And again, you can tell me to stuff it. That's perfectly fine. I am acceptable of that. But adding, so it goes back and reads, I, Alexa Woods, began Elder Zakyok. I, Alexa Woods, she repeated, solemnly vow to uphold my honor. Elder Zakyok continued, solemnly vow to uphold my honor. Alexa reiterated again. You get my drift of, there's statement 1, there's call, an intermission of saying, this person said it, in response, this person said it. Call, this person said it. You could almost do, after you kind of repeat after me of, I, Alexa Woods, and then immediately go, I, Alexa Woods. If there's not a who has to say it, it's basically a Elder Zakyok says it first because he tells her to repeat after him. I, Alexa Woods. And you can put I, Alexa Woods. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. The intermission in between of saying Elder Zakyok said, Elder Zakyok continued, Elder Zakyok continued, it breaks up the speech, and it becomes staggered for me. Again, maybe merely pedantic in the way that I read it. I don't know. That's my thought on that. Yeah. That's just my thought. Of the way, and that's a tough thing to write about. I mean, truthfully, I'd say, is that vows are not something that most people really presently think about how to write vows, because no one writes vows. No one does. I mean, very few people. The most times you see vows like that are in a spoken way. Say a priest at a wedding. I, Derek, do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. there's no, with writing, there has to be sometimes that intermission of who's saying what. That's my only thought, is like, sometimes, again, maybe, so that would be my point. I don't think you're ever going to encounter writing vows again like this. But it's just the thought. But then also talking about how to write in a way that it reminds people every month, every 2 months of what's going on without constantly referring to the same thing. Vows are often quickly summarized in literature, but only if there's really important features of vow. I can't actually think of any examples of vows in literature. The only vows I can think of is actually from the Magician's television show, in which there's not actually a call and response. It's more of the person who's crowning someone else giving a small speech and saying, I, W, whatever. Does the Oath of the Green Lantern Corps count? Yes, absolutely. Or sometimes people will say extra straight of their vows and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, of course the Green Lantern Corps counts. Doug would flip out if it didn't. But you could almost write, so, okay, I want to use that as an example. Core Oath. Okay. So the Green Lantern Corps. So, if you were to do a call and response with the Green Lantern Corps, with Doug and I, for example, because I know Doug's a super fan, I know he wouldn't forgive me if I said anybody else. Green Lantern Corps, if I said, hey, you have to repeat after me, in Brightest Day, in Brightest Day, and Blackest Night, Blackest Night. The way you could write that is, and Doug repeated after Derek, in Brightest Day, and Blackest Night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. So that way, it says, Doug repeated after Derek. You automatically hear, you automatically know that it was just a repeat. Of the way you do that. That's my thought. Of like, Doug repeated after Derek, or Alexa repeated after Elder Zakia. Boom. You've already established that as a connection. That way you don't have to go through it. It's a thought. It makes writing it simpler. And like I was saying, of like, the only other thing that I could think going forward, and again, take it or leave it, or let's discuss it, of how to cut down on the reminding viewers of what's happening. Not saying cut it out completely, like, because I get that, especially when parts may come out months apart or however. Again, don't know the release schedule of, because I feel like I don't know if it's just me, the way I'm reading it, or it feels like we're constantly going, and Alexa Wood's the first-blooded Yautja, first-blooded human of the Shadow Hunter Yautja clan. It feels like a mouthful to say nearly every time, also along the lines of the Yautja Healder Guyutan. It would be like referring to a person who's king of England, Richard III, every time you speak of them. And it's like, it's a mouthful, and if you're establishing character, that works, but as it basically, if you have established that and you made that very clear, you can almost you can round that out and go, yeah, they're the, you know, you don't go Jedi Knight, Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's just Obi-Wan Kenobi. You already have established his role within the universe. I don't know. That's just my thought. Again, take it or leave it. I mean, I'm not a writer or anything. I just consume way too much television of thinking about how to put things. That's actually one of my biggest things, like when shows constantly do the last time on, unless it is something that has been far removed. An example of this is, again, The Magicians have a love relationship with it. The Magicians only does a last time on is if it is something that has actually happened many episodes ago, and they need to remind you of something. Like there was a scene in season 2 that said last time on, and it actually gave a scene from season 1 because it's like, hey, remember that? Remember how this was a thing? This is what we're going to use in this storyline. So just to remind you, this character did this. This is going to be important here. We decided to use it here. I think it makes sense to do that. I don't know. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that. I'm getting messages. Actually, I think I'm glad that I've got all of you guys, all the subscribers read. I actually have to bounce a little early, so I'm actually not going to get to read Star Wars and John Joestar. But we will be reading it next week. As far as I know, I don't have anything next week. I actually do have a bounce a little bit early. But I got all of you guys down. That was the one thing that I was like, I need to get done. Because I have not got to read your stories for, what is it now? 3 weeks? Last week was nothing. The week before that was... I had to set up. Is Nick G in the fan club? Who is Nick G? Nick G. Who's Nick G? Yeah, I think so. I hope so. Nick G. Why does that name sound very familiar? And also, thanks for the 125 sparks there, Joe. Nick Gers. I don't know who Nick Gers is. There's the fireworks. I love the fireworks, dude. I love them. Yeah. Oh my god. Thanks, Schnarf. Thanks. Not going for it there, Mr. Person. Not going for it. Whoops. Oh, man. Turns out, they were banned. I just can't believe it happened, everyone. How did this happen? It's almost like I did it myself. You don't fuck around. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, fuck off. Man, I feel stupid for following that one for the first time. God, that's like a Bofa joke. I don't know. Thank you for pointing that out, Schnarf. It's horrible. It's not a great way to end on the stream, is it? I got you. I got you. God, that's so stupid. While I appreciate that kind of... Like, I always love the D's jokes or the Ligma jokes. I love those types of jokes, but not that one. That's just straight up racist shit. So anyway, I am gonna go, but I'm glad I got all of y'all. You guys are my core. Do we have more of your chapters there, Schnarf? All of us will follow one of these least ones? Probably. We don't have any more of your Schnarf. Have you written anything else? Nope, just not anymore. Okay. Okay. We'll get more of them. We'll get more. That'll allow us to basically bump through some more as well. We'll be for sure reading some more of yours there, Cosmic, and The Girl Named Hawk. More time heals, absolutely. I'm down for this. Nope, I have 2,000 words written in future chapter segments. Sounds good. Sounds good to me. But we'll be able to get through more. I think, aside from our Breath of the Wild, hopefully she can make it next time. Yes, she's gonna watch the VOD, which is self-indulgent fluff. I mean, self-indulgent fluff's great. So, anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end it here for the night, folks. Everybody enjoy your weekend. It is a weekend. So I thank you everybody for hanging out. Doug, thank you for the fireworks. I appreciate the fireworks. And everybody else for what you do. I appreciate each and every one of you. You all are awesome. Don't let anybody ever say you're not. If they do, oops, point it my way. So, until then, until Monday, I'll be back with Division 2. So, until then, have a good one.